Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, everybody. My name is Ryan Wells. I'm with Blue Line Optics, and today we are going to be doing a review of the Athlon Talos BTR. So the Talos BTR actually coincides with our theme, which we've been doing over the last 2 weeks, which is on budget builds, because it's a pretty inexpensive scope. Okay, this comes in, at least at our store, is $299.99, which is a pretty good price for a scope. You know, that still says that you can still build a gun for under $1,000, right? And that's what our budget build series is pretty much focused on. But another really awesome thing about the Talos here is that it was also built like the Midas HMR that we did a review of a couple of weeks ago. It was built with the hunter in mind. So this is feature rich for the hunter, right? It's got the illuminated reticle, advanced multi-coated lenses so that it helps you see in the twilight hours, etc. A parallax adjustment that starts at, let me just double check here, that starts at 10 yards to infinity. Which really isn't as common as you probably will want. And as we're going to find out, the lenses and the turrets are actually extremely good. They score pretty well, especially for a scope of this price range. Now, I said that it's comparable to the Midas HMR because it was built with the hunter in mind, and it's pretty inexpensive when you think about it. That being said, there are quite a few differences between this scope and the Midas HMR. For instance, the Midas HMR has an almost perfect tracking score. The Talos does not. But at the same time, the Talos features the illuminated reticle, which the Midas HMR does not. And a lot of hunters, they like that illuminated reticle because, you know, if you're hunting early in the morning or maybe in the evening, it can help. It can obviously help you pick out your target a little bit better. So that's the basics of it. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the feature score. And for a scope that's priced the way that it is, I'm actually pretty impressed with the features. Okay, it's got advanced fully multi-coated optics, a pretty good turret system here. It tracks extremely well, as we're going to find out later. An illuminated reticle, parallax adjustment, 30mm tube, which is going to give it much more elevation and windage adjustment than the 1-inch tubes, which you see on most hunting scopes. So I would like to take that into consideration before we compare it to something like the Vortex Razor HD, which is what we compare everything to. We just decided that was the benchmark for features that we were going to compare scopes to. But just keep that in mind that compared to most hunting scopes, this has quite a bit more features than what most hunting scopes do end up having, okay? The places where it was lacking was mainly the non-ED glass. It's high quality glass, it's just not ED glass. It's got a 44mm objective lens, which is going to allow in less light than what something like the 56mm objective lens will. That being said, I didn't actually see too much of a problem with the optical quality of the scope, except for the low magnification. It doesn't have edge-to-edge clarity, which is extremely rare in scopes anyway. The Vortex Razor HD and the Cronus BTR are two of the very, very few scopes that actually do have that. It's lacking a little bit in elevation adjustment. So the Vortex Razor HD has a 28.5 mil of total elevation adjustment. The Talos BTR is going to have 20. That being said, it's got a 20 mil of windage adjustment, whereas the Vortex Razor HD has 10. So I went ahead and gave it an extra point on the windage adjustment and subtracted a point on the elevation adjustment. They just kind of balance themselves out with that. And last but not least, the last thing that it is lacking compared to the Vortex Razor HD is that it's nitrogen purged instead of argon purged. Now, argon purging, the molecules tend to be bigger, they take up more space, and it provides a much more effective seal to keep this waterproof and shockproof. That being said, and fog-proof too. That being said, this is nitrogen purging is still pretty high quality, so it's not like we want to give it a 0 out of 2 points. It's just that it's not as good as argon purging. So let's go ahead and take a look at the tracking score now. Okay, and so with tracking, it scored extremely well. All right, it was within a 1% error on average, which is really, really good. So the biggest error it ever had was just off by 0.2 mil, which again, for a scope under like $300 or just right at $300, I should say, that's really, really good. And if you want to listen to the quality of the turrets, those are very, very defined. right? Very, very defined. And when I was doing the shot group tracking test, it was very easy for me to get this to go where I wanted it to go. You know how sometimes scopes can be a little bit mushy, and when you're making that adjustment, like you're not even quite sure if it hit the mark that you want it to hit or not. Not a problem with the Talos. The Talos was very, very, very spot on with the with where I made the adjustments. So that was good. I ended up the shot group tracking. We ended up missing 7 out of 30. Although I gotta say that was probably me just having a bad day, to be honest with you, because there's nothing about the scope that lends me to think that that it would track poorly. Just based on the machine test that we had, it didn't. It returned to 0 almost every single time. There was only one time where it didn't return perfectly to 0, and there were actually a surprisingly little amount of times of when it didn't actually hit its mark perfectly. So that was really good. That was really good. The total score that we ended up giving it on the tracking test was a 111.27 out of 130, which is an 86%. Gives it a B on the tracking. Again, I never got an error outside of 1% error when it came to actual turret adjustments, so that was good. This is just how we score the test, is the 86%. So let's go ahead and take a look at the optical quality. Now, much like the Midas HMR, the optical quality score was hindered on the fact that the Talos has a low magnification adjustment. So it goes up to 14 total. And I know that might be kind of hard to see from there, but it goes up to 14 total, which means that our tests at 100 and 200 yards, we're not going to be able to do at that max magnification. And so we run into the same problem that we ran into with the Midas HMR, is that, well, we can't score it out of something it doesn't have the capability of doing. That being said, it not having the capability of doing this certain thing almost brings it down in score, okay? Because you're not going to be able to score something as high as something like the Ares ETR that is able to hit that 27 magnification, right? Because you're just able to see more than what you will at 14 magnification. So we found a little sweet spot there and ended up just adjusting the scores accordingly. The optical clarity score for the Talos ended up getting a 78%, which was about 3% off of what the Midas HMR did, which I think is extremely good. I think that's a very good score, to be honest with you. It got 141 out of 181 total points. Again, that's adjusted down. Usually the optical quality scores are right around the 335 point mark. But we adjusted it down to compensate for the fact that it had a lower magnification adjustment. The optical quality score, I do not think there was nothing that gave me the indication that the glass itself was the reason why it had low quality, or not low quality, but had a lower optical quality score. In fact, I would almost give it some mercy points to bring it up into the B. Into the B class. It's just that it has a low magnification adjustment range, and since it has that, it's going to score lower. That's just kind of how it is. That being said, the glass is really high quality, and I was actually really impressed with how well the resolution test went and how well the Snell and eye chart test went. Okay, and we come to the final score for the Athlon Talos BTR. We end up getting 375.9 points out of 464, which gives it a solid B. Now, one caveat is that that's a solid B when you're comparing the score of the Talos to the score of something like the Ares ETR or the Vortex Razor HD. Okay, it is graded along the same exact criteria as those scopes. That being said, it is clearly not in their ballpark. It's not the same scope, okay? It first of all has lower magnification, it doesn't have the same glass, and it's not at all a comparable scope to that. It's just that this is a standardized test that we're doing just to grade the scope overall, okay? And I just want you to keep that in mind, because I don't want you to think like, this is totally not something I would buy now, blah, blah, blah. You know, because it is a good scope. If we compared it up against hunting scopes, I guarantee you this would be an A+, because the optical quality was great, the tracking was fantastic, the amount of features you get on it for a hunting scope is almost unheard of. Well, not unheard of, but extremely rare at least. So honestly, it's an A scope for hunters, for hunting scope applications, and for something that's under $1,000, like if you want to do a budget build, it's a very, very good buy. And that's it. If you guys got any questions or anything like that over the Talos BTR, let me know in the comments below. If you got any feedback on these reviews or something that you'd like to see that to be doing better, let me know as well. I'm always looking to improve these. And other than that, we'll see you next time. Thank you.